here with the images with different location for the light, for the sun. So for the elephants, you can see that the sun comes from this direction. For the mountain, if the sun came from this direction, this area here wouldn't be dark, and this one back here would be. So for the mountain, the direction of the sun is more from above, from up here. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of, since this area is fairly hidden, we're going to actually just assume, unless we want to change the mountains dramatically, that would take a while, we have the sun coming from this direction. So if you want to create shadows for that, what I suggest you do is you take the little baby elephants, you go with your move tool, or actually selection tool. Make sure you have auto select. That allows you to, whenever you click on a certain layer, notice here right now, right, we're on the background layer, but if I go and click on the baby elephant, it jumps to the layer I just clicked on. So what you want to do is you want to command click on the mask to load the little elephants there. Then you want to create a new layer. You want to fill it with a darker color, option delete or alt delete. Then you want to remove the selection, you don't need it anymore. And actually the color could be even a little bit darker, by the way. In fact, let's do it a little bit darker. I had loaded a greenish gray color thinking it might work, but I think it would be better something darker. All right, option delete, command deselect, and then you go and edit, transform, let's say distort. So what you need to do is you need, imagine that the light coming with this direction, then the shadow would be down here, right? You obviously can grab these points and kind of get the shadow to be fairly flat. Remember, it has to be subtle. It cannot be something that takes a whole lot of attention. Don't move this bottom line too much because it's where the feet of the elephants are, and the shadow generally grows from that. So let's say, okay, actually I'm not too sure that is right. It's not flat enough. So do it again, no problem. Just kind of, you have to like go in and figure out what's the right amount. I think this is actually pretty good. You barely see it, but it's there. You'll see that when we do the one up, I accidentally moved the line and where the feet are. You'll see that when we do the one of the bigger elephant, it'll be a lot more visible. So you do this, you say return, you see that it has these shadows, they're very, very thin. I generally go and filter and blur them a little bit. I like Gaussian blur, but there are a lot of blurs in there you can play with. I do a little bit of blurring. If you blur it too much, it's going to disappear. You see that, right? So you've got to blur it just enough right there. So it doesn't go away, but it's kind of like blending into the landscape. And then you could use a blend mode, obviously, like a multiply or something like that. That will make it a little bit darker, but it's no big deal. So let's do the same thing with the big elephant. So we repeat it one more time. Select by command clicking on the thumbnail of the mask. So you grab the big elephant. Then you create a new layer. You option or alt delete to fill it. Oops. Sorry, the layer went down here. I'm going to move it up here. Command deselect. Then I'm going to go in edit, transform, distort. And again, it has to be down to this direction because the sun comes from up there, so the shadow will be kind of down here, right, on the opposite side. So you kind of play with it until it's the right. Like this one should not be there. It should be more like partially. But not really. And as I said, you kind of need to move it until it's the right. Sometimes you do this and then you say, okay, now I'm going to move it up so I get to see it a little bit better. And remember, what ultimately you're going to do, I'm going to move it a little bit more, and maybe don't stretch it as much. But what you sorry, I'm trying to see why is it taking that shape. Oh, I can see why it's taking that shape. Ultimately, what you have to do is, remember, blur it and stuff, so it doesn't really have to be perfectly accurate. Well, this time is not supported even though it did it. Look at this. This is a very funky thing. I've never seen it. So in the canvas is like this, but in the thumbnail is quite different. That is interesting. I've never seen that before. So I'm going to blur it just like I did earlier. Ooh, it's actually going back to that. Wow, that's just very interesting. Okay, let's redo the image transform. Somehow something went at the very end, went wrong, and it didn't take it, but I know it should. There's no reason not to. So once again, let's move it down. Now we have a little blur to it, but that's okay. See, this is where the feet are, so you want to kind of keep the feet more or less there and bend this down. And eventually the feet might kind of disappear because it's all kind of crammed in the corner, as you can see, right? Let's see though if we can be so lucky that this time it allows us to do this weird operation. Let's say return. Yep, this time worked. So I'm going to blur it a little bit more. I blurred it just a little bit, but I realized pretty quick that there was a weird artifact because it was blurring the whole big elephant, the top part. Let's blur it a little bit more. Doesn't seem to actually want to do the blur either. My computer is having a bit of problems. My Mac I've been kind of using my PC for the Zoom lectures because the Mac is having these type of glitches. So you want to take the shadow and obviously put it behind the elephant. That really helps. And then again, you might want to give it a multiply or a different. And multiply doesn't seem to work. I guess you have an effect back there. So you would want to, maybe we can do color burn and make the opacity different. But you can see that now you have a shadow for the elephant, you have a shadow for this one. This shadow should be actually bent a little bit more, I can see. But it's not bad. It means if the light comes from this direction, that's kind of where the shadow goes. You just need to be a little bit finagle with more. I'm kind of like always playing with trying to get the shadow to be perfect, and sometimes, you know, is important. Sometimes it depends where the shadow is. In this case, it's pretty marginal because it's at the very, very, very corner down there, so you don't see a whole lot of it. But that's how you create shadows in a scene where there's a certain amount of light coming and it's clearly enough light that you would want a shadow on the ground. That's how you create shadows on the ground. All right.